Greetings, my fellow connectors. Welcome back to the Musical Connections podcast. We are here at the Sheraton Hotel foyer for MusicNL Week 2025. People are going fast and furious here. There's export one-on-ones right over to my left here, or to my right, actually, and then to the left, sound checking for some showcases. Well, joining me right now, he is one of the West Coast premier industry professionals. He runs Steady Entertainment. He's also an account executive with NTV and OZFM on the West Coast. He is also the host of RogersTV's West Talk and was also a nominee for Media Person of the Year for the MusicNL Awards this past year. Joining me right now and coming down Connector's Corner here to the Sheraton Hotel, Dustin Parsons. How you doing, buddy?
Good, man. Good. Thanks for having me on. It's so nice to talk to you finally.
I know, right?
Yeah.
We've been talking back and forth, and we've been trying to, set something up for a couple of years now.
Yeah.
And I believe now, by the time that we drop these, I'll be celebrating 3 years of this podcast.
Incredible. Congratulations.
Thank you so much, man. It's crazy to believe that 3 years has passed already, and just fast how fast time flies when you're having fun and really, covering all the music that we do.
Yeah, but as you know, the consistency is really probably going to be the key to the success of your show. Right, and the fact that you've done it for 3 years is no small feat. So congratulations. I was involved in podcasting as well for a period of time. There's nothing I've loved more, but it's really just so hard to keep it going consistently.
Oh no, absolutely, and making sure to keep track of all the newfound releases and stuff, and also all the guests that I have. I've gotten to a point now where I'm starting to write down how many releases I have each week.
Wow.
It's better that way because I won't forget stuff. Because there's a release that's out there that I'm like, shit, I forgot that release that week, and I can't play it this week, but we'll probably play it down the road. But it really goes to show you, if you put the work in, especially for yourself with the the West Talk and also all the work you do with Steady Entertainment, if you put it in consistently day in and day out, the results will show.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's anybody can make an impact in their community, and RogersTV has allowed me a good opportunity to do that. It's a volunteer opportunity, but I'm so honored just to get to be the person who gets to go mess around in Corner Brook's TV studio every week, and every now and then shed light on a Newfoundland artist, which is just something I love to use that little platform to do when possible.
It is a big platform too, and especially on the West Coast, it's an opportunity for musicians who are going out there to get that media coverage. Because when it comes to the music of the province, St. John's has always been considered the hub, but I would say Corner Brook is starting to get up there with all the industry people that are really making it work out there.
Yeah, no, and that's nice to hear, for sure. It was, for me, receiving the nomination for Media Person of the Year, that meant so much just being over there, and it just, a lot of times I feel so disconnected from all the action, which of course is truly out here. Now, don't get me wrong, we've got incredible artists over in Western Newfoundland, a lot of whom were, making great names for themselves before I ever got involved in this stuff, right? But yeah, there's certainly a lot more spicy stuff going on out here in St. John's, where there's constantly new releases and new projects on the go. So that's what must make it exciting out here to be in media.
Oh, absolutely, and really getting to see all the music that comes out here too. I would also mention too, Conception Bay South. There's something in the water out there when it comes to all the music. You have Darcy Scott, Justin Fancy, Mallory Johnson, Quote the Raven,
Carter Snow, all these, yes, absolutely.
Or the Volta.
Yeah.
Carter Music or the Volta, he's been doing great work out there too. There's something in the water in CBS though.
Yeah, there is. Yeah, but I've never met anybody I didn't like from CBS. So far, I'm sure there's somebody. But yeah, man, it's so nice. So again, I'm really thankful for these little opportunities to get to do this media stuff, because it's really, I mean, again, it gives us the opportunity. It's building a bridge through both sides of the island. And like I was saying off camera too, for better or for worse, I'm so thankful for social media and stuff. I don't think it would be possible for me to have any idea of what's going on out here or really stay engaged in a meaningful way if it wasn't for social media, to be honest.
No, 100%. But there's also there's some cons with it too, because there's a flood of stuff that you may not like. The algorithm may skew it in that way.
Yeah. But
the positive about that, you get to find out more about what's going on in the music community in St. John's or in Gander or in Labrador or on the West Coast too.
Yeah. And it's an easy way to support artists too, in terms of media. Everybody on Facebook is a media person. Everybody's a creator now, right? And
that's true too.
So when you see an artist that you like and love, there's never been an easier time to be able to give gratitude to an artist. Sometimes it's just a like and a share, and that means more than people might think. So yeah, thankful for the day and age that we're in. And again, when we first met, things were particularly crazy in the whole media and digital landscape, right? People were being forced to do some very creative and inventive things because of the whole, I don't even know if we can say the words for algorithm friendliness, but we'll say the
pandemic.
The pandy. Yeah.
Or the panda.
Yeah. Like, it's so funny. I was having a chat with Reverend Dave here recently, and we're talking about, like, is it soon enough yet? Like, can we now start to talk about some of the incredible things that actually did happen during that time, Because that, to me, from my perspective, that's when a lot of collaboration started to happen in the Newfoundland music scene. And we were seeing artists come over to Western Newfoundland, and just this whole, or maybe it was just because that's when I first got involved with MusicNL that it started to open doors for me, but it felt like there was a lot more collaboration started to happen around that time.
Yeah, because everyone was stuck in their houses, and they really had no other place to go besides Newfoundland and Labrador. They couldn't go outside the province because of the travel restrictions that were in place at the time.
Yeah.
But of course, we're talking quite a bit about the industry, but there may be some people that may not know who Dustin Parsons is. So for our listeners out there, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, well, I'm a dad and an entrepreneur from Western Newfoundland. I live in Pasadena, small town just outside of Corner Brook. And I do various things for a living. I guess I'm a real estate agent and a couple other ventures. But in terms of this kind of stuff in music and media, I started a small entertainment company in like 2015 called Steady Entertainment.
Okay.
And that was after sort of a few years playing in bands and being around the scene. And after a few years working, I had already worked in media a little bit by that time. I was working in radio with K-Rock and VOCM, so I had some exposure to entertainment. And I had a few friends at the time, like Mike Lynch and Colin Hollett, who were just at the time making a name for themselves on Facebook, but didn't have a ton of shows or anything under their belt. Like, this was, back 2014, 2015. So started to do shows in my living room, in my house, because it was the only venue in Pasadena, and had some comedy shows. My first musical show was with Ian Foster, who was at the time doing an alternative venues tour, and I didn't know Ian, he didn't know me. We got connected, and then he was doing a show in my living room. And things kind of escalated quickly, and after a few years, I went from kind of doing things in my living room to doing things in bigger spaces, and had my first chance to do an arena show in Corner Brook, where myself and a partner took a bit of a chance, and we booked Alan Doyle. We were so confident, like, what would be the show to fill this arena in Corner Brook? Who's the artist that checks all the boxes?
Alan Doyle.
And of course, we only have so much money to work with, and it truly is Alan Doyle. That's one of those artists in Newfoundland who crosses all the demographic gaps, right? Everybody loves him. The 19-year-olds come out, the parents come out, the grandparents come out, everybody's celebrating. So that was my first real, that was a big win for us, and showed me like what is possible in Newfoundland for if you're willing to put in the work, if you're willing to make the connections and take a little financial risk. Some cool things can start to happen. So
no, absolutely, and it's great to have that there on the West Coast as well, because again, as we said just about a couple of minutes ago, the hub here of music is here in St. John's, where we're recording this.
Yeah.
But when it comes to if you have the right people out there like yourself, and also people now like Nigel Jenkins and Louis McDonald and Debbie Brown and Jeff Shepard. I mentioned all the people from Laughing Heart Music, but they're really like
they're the industry there now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But now I guess there really wasn't a hub at the time when you really got into Steady Entertainment. But I guess they were really just starting over there. Once the pandemic really took hold of us, or the pandy as we say now. Yeah. It was really then that Laughing Heart Music really started to, dig their heels into the West Coast scene, and now look where the West Coast has been now because of Laughing Heart, and also people like yourself.
And that was so necessary. Like for me, I'm more focused on the live production side of things. Like I love bringing people together for live shows. In terms of management and grant writing and all these other things that are so valuable to get artists to a point where they're getting great shows, that's where the industry lies, and that's why it's so good to have like Laughing Heart and people like Nigel and all that blossoming up in our area. So that's super cool. I'm glad to see artists get cultivated, and and I hope now, especially we've had some great connections here at Music Week, and we've had some good discussions, and so I hope they know that I'm here as well to help create any opportunities possible, and help put shows together and take some chances, put some skin in the game to help these people find some audiences.
Oh, for sure. So what's been your favorite show since you started Steady Entertainment? Do you remember that show that really stuck out to you? Because I know you brought Alan Doyle into one of the arenas. I believe it was like the Civic Center.
Yeah, that was a fun thing. That really stands out because it was like, at that time, the most people we'd ever brought into a room together. And my wife was 9 months pregnant with our first child, and it was very much a family-run organization. Had like 20 bartenders, all my friends and cousins and mom's friends, and it was quite a thing that, I'm really proud of what we accomplished. Starting from, again, year before that, doing shows in my living room, and not having a lot of lighthouses over on the West Coast of like, how do we do these larger scale productions? But certainly had some friends, and at the time, and they know who they are. Thinking back, that was a really proud moment. I have a visual in my head of being on stage and with the mayor of Corner Brook at the time, Jim Parsons, who's now our MHA, and getting ready to introduce Alan to come up to the stage, and seeing this arena filled with people, and looking up in the concourse and seeing my wife, 9 months pregnant, with a drink ticket lineup of 400 people.
Oh my God.
She was there. I foolishly put her on this drink ticket booth up in the concourse, right? I just remember being on stage, getting ready to introduce Alan, and looking up and just seeing like this rope wrapped around line.
Oh my God.
So that was cool. I think that was one of my most memorable experiences. But also, shortly after that, had the chance to work on The Gathering, which was a festival created by Shaun Majumder in Burlington.
Oh, yes, bye.
So, Shaun, the festival was sort of, I guess, starting to wrap up, but I got introduced to Shaun, and myself and my wife and another partner went in to try to, I don't want to say revitalize, but the festival was having some challenges at the time, and they were looking for sort of a different direction forward. So the festival ultimately didn't stand the test of time, and it was kind of returned to the town, and there's some interesting things going on with it. But the experiences I had at that festival were truly undescribably magic, because it was a magic festival. Might not have made a ton of sense from a financial perspective, but in terms of the experience that people had when they went to the gathering, undescribable. There might never be anything like it, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I've always wanted to, go out to the Gathering Festival in Burlington when, Shaun Majumder did run that, because there was one video that I saw back in 2018 where Shaun Majumder and all the people that he had out there at that year did a cover of Music and Friends, and Bud even sang vocals on that too, which
That's right.
really struck me, and I was just really blown away by it.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, man, I really want to be in Burlington so bad.
Yeah, that was a fun project for sure, man. Beautiful place, beautiful people, made a lot of great friends out there, and so that stands out. Take those memories with me, but yeah, I've had every show has come with it's a pile of great memories, and I'm constantly meeting new friends, and I appreciate every opportunity to be able to bring people together and not have to lose my house, because sometimes, and I'm trying to not have to take so many financial risks anymore with this stuff. It's just not that responsible. I've realized I can pour a lot of sweat equity into these things. There's a lot I can offer outside of just taking cash risks all the time. So just trying to readjust and re-strategize for the entertainment business in Newfoundland over the coming years to see what I can do.
Mm-hmm. Now, when it comes to, being in the booking business, what do you feel like people don't know about when it comes to, booking shows of that magnitude, like your stadium shows that you've done, not stadium, but arena shows?
Yeah.
They brought Alan Doyle there, and you also had Shannon Knockout there as well. To especially, the shows you originally did in your living room, but also now with the venues like 62 Broadway or the Palace or the Rack.
Right.
Those are venues in Corner Brook that are really, really great for musicians to really cut their teeth out there.
Yeah.
What does it take to put off a show from your perspective, for people that may not know what it takes?
Yeah. I mean, I guess it really depends on the size and scope of what you're doing. Festivals are its own sort of thing. If you're wanting to do a show and you're going to a venue like the Rack, it really doesn't take that much because the venue offers so much. Mm-hmm. You go to a place like the Rack, it's turnkey, they've got all the great techs, and you show up and it's ready to rock, right? It doesn't take a lot to be able to have a great show there. But for somebody to endeavor to produce their own arena show for profit, like some of the great entrepreneurs we see in St. John's now, the Pete Quintons, this type of people.
John Steele.
Right. And I'm not saying I know anything that they know, but I can start to get a sense of, what's involved here. And I think one thing that people really don't have it's hard to wrap your head around is the economics of it, right? And you think about, how come that great band doesn't come here? How come we can't get this amazing headliner, And a lot of times it's because really it's hard to find an act for Newfoundland that can cross all the generations. And I find outside in St. John's, I think it seems like there's almost a market for anything. Mary Brown Center there's several times in the last 2 years have sold out entirely on shows or artists I just found out about also that week. and I consider myself somewhat in tune with what's going on, right? But you see basically artists who are emerging rapidly out of TikTok and all this, and now they demand huge sales. That's its own sort of world.
Yeah, well, a big example of that would be Gerard McCarthy, because he just sold the Mary Brown Center himself.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Right. Massive show. And there's been other hip hop artists and all these types of things that come through. People might not even have known that it came through, but it sold 7,000 tickets. I think I would rather re-answer the question that you just asked to say that one thing people might not realize is that it's actually not rocket science. There's actually not that much to it. The main thing is being able to turn to the professionals in a respective area. So if any person listening to this thinks like, man, I would love to present my favorite band and take a chance and do this show. Like, the professionals are out there. There's people in this scene, production people in St. John's here, the Tony Murrays and all these types of people who can bring those visions to life, right? So it's all there. Sometimes it just takes a person, and this is sometimes, I think, maybe a role that I've been able to fill, to just bring the idea forward and be able to deal with a bit of rejection, and people tell you that it's like stupid and that's not feasible and it's not going to make money, and just get over that little hurdle. And it's amazing what happens, right?
No, absolutely. Now, the first time I really heard about you, that's really the first year you got into MusicNL, was the Pandy 2020.
Yeah.
You did a show at the Hue and Draw where you brought Fairgale out there. It was called Saltwater Noise. I've seen that show. It was actually a tremendous show, because I think Fairgale at that point released Liza and One Doesn't Kill Us Makes Us Stronger.
Yes.
And those songs were really getting some great play back in that day. What do you remember about that Saltwater Noise show?
Zach, this was such an interesting time, man. And this is maybe the only time that I'll ever get the opportunity to talk about this in this way, so I'm going to take advantage of it, right?
Go for it.
But that show on the roof of that hotel was the first ticketed in-person show to happen in Newfoundland after the lockdowns.
Wow.
Right? So, and not only that, it was live broadcast from the roof of the hotel, like all over the world. And at the time, the thing about Saltwater Noise, which, not to get too far ahead of myself, but this was a thing that Steady Entertainment received a grant from MusicNL for $5,000 to put for a project that was called Saltwater Noise. And the idea was to provide, noticing that the reaction to the lockdowns was everybody was streaming from their kitchen tables and all of this with their cell phones. The goal was to elevate the quality of the live streaming, to find ways that artists can go from their cell phone in their living room to, even though we're in a lockdown, to having a professional live stream thing, right?
Yeah.
And Saltwater Noise was right at the cutting edge of that. And very soon after, there was like the big AV companies and stuff like that in town were setting up sound stages and doing all that. But through Saltwater Noise, we were the first. And Fairgale was, to me, a band that was just doing great things in Newfoundland at the time. I really loved what I was personally a big fan, and they had this release ready to go that you were saying, right? So I reached out to them with this idea to do this, and they were on board initially. And as we got a little further down the road, they became very skeptical, I'll say, right? And rightfully so. We had never met each other in person at this point. This all happened just on like some Zoom calls and stuff like that, right? And like a month before the show, basically we had a meeting, and the guys were like, look, we've been talking to some people. Now I know who those people are. They're some of the people I just mentioned who are production experts in St. John's.
Yeah.
We've been talking to some people, and they think what you're trying to do is very ambitious and probably not going to work, right? And they had all kinds of technical questions about how are you going to do this, how are you going to do that, right? And basically what it was coming down to with the live streaming at the time, because again, even in the last 6 years, all these tools and apps and stuff have really grown.
Yeah.
But the complexity was just trying to get a good in-person audio for the people who were in the actual audience, and also have a good audio feed, a different mix, essentially, for the live stream. And also, I was doing live hosting and in-person cut-ins, just like basically like a telethon type situation, but on the roof of the hotel. And with no NTV or RogersTV or anything at that time, was entirely just independently done.
None of their big major studio cameras.
No, we worked with PB Production, which was a film. Peter Buckle was like the film instructor for Kona's film program, and we pulled him in and some other people. And this is actually how I came to be working with Rogers.
Wow.
Because I needed to borrow a piece of specialized equipment, and when the producer there found out what we had whipped up on our own sort of steam, he was like, geez, like, do you want to have a show? Like, if you like to do this stuff, would you like to host a show? There's an opening. And that just happened from there, right?
Wow.
But just to put a bow on the Saltwater Noise thing, I'm very proud of it because it was very inventive. And and we did end up winning an award for Outstanding Company of the Year, which I believe was based on that. You weren't the only. It was really the first time I got to interact with a lot of artists from out here, and basically just let people know that this is the role I want to play. Like, I love music. I'm so in love with so much of many of our artists and what they're doing. And I'm a business guy, I'm a sales guy, and I want to be able to find ways to, and like a media guy, and I want to be able to support from that angle. And so, yeah, Saltwater Noise was a fun startup project. If we had more continuous grant fundings, we would have been able to continue to do stuff like that.
No, 100%.
Right? It was like, were expensive endeavors that only really worked because they were being supported and well-sponsored.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
And when we got back to in-person shows, really nobody... The steam came out of all the streaming stuff and the virtual aspect of it.
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
But I still feel like there's something there for streaming because like there's markets there to like have streamed on YouTube or Facebook or even Twitch these days too. Because like a lot of the big streamers like your iShowSpeeds or your Kai and Ties, they have a lot of viewers on streaming.
Yeah, you're so right, Zach. And this was like also at this time when the Saltwater Noise stuff was going on, I had just started a podcast. It was called Red Sky at Night, and my dream was to just talk to all interesting Newfoundlanders, musicians, but all interesting Newfoundlanders who had cool things to say. Like, did a podcast with the Newfoundland Explorer, Justin Barber, and just, they got Adrian Beaton when he first opened Jack Axes, which was like a kind of a crazy thing, this axe throwing business at the time. And then I went to work with RogersTV, and it kind of was like scratching that itch. But in retrospect, I really, and this is why I commend you for your consistency in the last 3 years. In retrospect, I really wish I had just stayed with that and like doing my own thing and kept doing that. And I could have still done RogersTV, but I could have kept going with my own sort of platform. And I think that today, had I just kept going through with that, it would be probably a pretty significant platform, and it would have become a thing. So maybe we'll see that I've picked that back up in the future. But also right now to skip ahead a bit, I guess now I'm working with NTV and OZFM, and I really feel like there could be some cool things to come of that in the future too. So
as an account executive over there on the West Coast too, because there's only like a few workers out there on the West Coast now. I think Becky Daly's the West Coast reporter there now.
Yeah.
And because she took over Don Bradshaw's role when he went on to run for the Liberals in the federal election, and now you're the sales exec out there doing some work out there too.
They've never had a salesperson outside of St. John's NTV, believe it or not, in all their years. And but also there's other things beyond sales. The company right now is in a really interesting place, Newfoundland Broadcasting Company, and I think it's a company to watch. I think you're going to see some really cool stuff start to happen. Plus with NTV Plus, the new streaming platform that NTV is pushing.
Well, that's a great platform.
Very cool platform, and I think that could be a place where a lot of original Newfoundland content can live in the future. It could be a home to really prop that kind of stuff up.
No, absolutely.
So, yeah.
And media really has evolved. I think one thing you and I have in common really is we both worked at VOCM because I spent in the operation and production side of things for about a year before Stingray really dug their heels. And it's media now, like especially with the big jobs. I mean, media is still very important. Radio and television and all that are still very important.
Yep.
But the jobs where they were before the pandemic versus after the pandemic, they're not there, and especially in a rising world where AI is really threatening all those jobs as well.
Right.
It's becoming more and more difficult to get a sustainable career in the media. So that's also a major reason why I started this podcast is to have an opportunity and a platform to discuss the music of the province and really just cover all the platforms that I really wasn't covering on Celtic Wake Up or even on VOWR.
Right.
But the more I started doing this podcast, I'm just going on a bit of a tangent here.
Yeah.
But the more I did this podcast, I realized there was a void here that was missing when it comes to all the music I was covering. I was covering hip hop and heavy metal. I was covering hardcore music. You look at acts like Order of the Precious Blood and their showcases. You look at Porta Poutine, look at what they're doing. If it weren't for me giving those opportunities initially on the podcast, there may not be as much people as listening to the podcast as probably I would think so. But to get that opportunity in the first place, there may be a person like you, or there may be a person like Shelley Nordstrom, or Bob Hallett, or someone else that may pay attention to him and like, hey, how would you like a showcase on the East Coast Music Awards, Industry Awards? How would you like one showcase at ECMAs or Canadian Folk Music Awards? That one small step can really play a big role into where their career goes from here.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to get into this question. Where do you feel media is right now, especially in Newfoundland and Labrador, for the cultivation of our music scene?
Interesting. It's a good question. I think that we're seeing a rise in independent sort of media, like in outlets like this. But I think you're starting to see, like, even within, like, the Greg Smiths of the world and these types of people, right? Within these entities, these media conglomerates that we have here in Newfoundland, I think they're realizing that we've got an amazing product right here in front of us, right? It's like a gold mine. And it's low-hanging fruit, I think, to promote and support these Newfoundland artists. So, but in terms of media, I think NTV Plus, just to put a sort of a humble plug in there, is kind of where it could go. Like, just imagine if there was a one place online that you could turn to not only watch the NTV Evening News Hour every week, but you could see all the music videos that just came out from all Newfoundland artists, and you can see, imagine a world where the Outhouse, beloved YouTube channel, but imagine that type of content you can go to on homegrown comedy, Newfoundland comedy you could find on NTV Plus, lower budget kind of stuff.
Yeah, NL Now, there's also a great program too from Jake Thompson.
Yeah, exactly, right? So I think these are good examples. Where media is right now, I would just say, is in a state of transition. The radio companies are becoming digital media companies, right? And the TV companies are kind of looking at all this kind of stuff too. It all seems to be changing. And this type of stuff seems to be at the forefront of where it's going, right? I think it's pretty much accepted that podcasts are some of the most influential media things like on earth right now, right? Podcasters are moving people and in ways that nothing else really has. Mm-hmm. So, and I think, I think the big companies are seeing that, and they're trying to adapt to that a little bit. In Newfoundland, I think there's nothing but opportunity in terms of media. I think there's room for a lot more voices as well, a lot more creators, a lot more shows. So I hope to see that happen. I don't know. I would love to throw that question back at you as well, just because you have been right in this now for so many years.
No, 100%.
And, how do you describe the landscape of like media in Newfoundland?
Yeah, no, that's an interesting point to put up. This is kind of the first time this has ever happened. Someone throws a question back at me, but I'll happily answer this too. It is an interesting state of flux or transition, especially too, where both you and I have worked in radio before, and you now work in television. It's playing catch up, really, because radio, I think, are still doing a pretty good job of, because you look at some of the stations here, like your VOCMs and K-Rocks, they have their dedicated Irish Newfoundland show, your sound checks, even your Welcome to the Rock. You have the Jigs and Reels on Oz, and then you also have community and campus radio, which I still think they play a big role in developing the music scene of Newfoundland and Labrador as well. You look at Radio Bay Roberts, Bell Island, VOWR, and CHMR. CHMR is probably one of the best examples of that in Colleen Power and what she's doing out there. Bay FM out on the West Coast as well.
That was basically a college radio before, in its origins, right?
Yes,
that was on campus before it blew up to become what it is. So.
But I feel like they're not going to be going away ever, because I feel like they will survive and they'll find a way to adapt. But they got to find a way where they accept all forms of media and then implement that into their distribution strategy, I would say. Trying to come up with words for that, but they're pretty hard when but this is a podcast conversation in itself. This is something we could be,
for sure.
I can have you or Greg or Danielle or Amanda even too
I agree.
talking about it.
I think one thing that they would probably say, if I was to guess, and I think in Newfoundland, people involved in media, especially people involved in traditional media, television and radio, I think, and we see what's going on in other parts of the country with those formats, I think everybody would agree that in Newfoundland, traditional media is still very much alive.
Oh, yes.
Right? The radio is still very effective here. It's still a very effective way to be heard. Companies are benefiting from it. The numbers are big when you look at the actual analytics of the numbers, the amount of people that go to like vocm.com, ntv.com, like all these types of things. It's significant, right?
No, for sure. And they still hold a lot of power and a lot of weight into, what music gets put out there.
Yeah.
But, if podcasts can be that, stepping stone or that foot in the door to get them onto those stations, I feel like I've done my job.
Absolutely.
Yeah, let's go.
Yeah.
Now, of course, we'll talk about the West Coast music scene in general, because you're the host of RogersTV's West Talk. You were also host of the ECMA Red Carpet along with Lori Lilia Lovelace and Laura Bell Umba. Yeah. And the West Coast music scene, I think, again, is really starting to catch up to St. John's and, the amount of music that comes out of there. And just with Milltown Records as well, shouting out Debbie Brown and Jeff Shepard with the work that they do over there. Where do you feel the West Coast music scene is at this point in time, Justin? Dustin. I called you Justin.
It's okay. A lot of people call me Justin. It's totally acceptable. The West Coast scene is really interesting. It seems like we'll see people like Robert Humber now with his new album, his new project, Archives. Like the first time I see Robert is probably out here, right? And like this is really, I don't know if he's really had a lot of performances over in Western Newfoundland, right? Because this is where he's going to be building things up a little bit, is out here. The scene to me is there aren't a ton of original artists. There's a lot of incredible artists who have the capacity to be original artists, who have songs, who can write, but they're like not really making that transition into it. And I think that's because there's been not a big support system for them. So they're playing covers, they're in the bars, doing all the thing, right? Mm-hmm. But now, because there's things on the go like 62 Broadway and Laughing Heart, now there's these spaces being created where people can really cultivate that. And I think that's, for that reason, lacking that, there hasn't been a ton of original music projects come out of the scene, right? Of course, we have the Bards and the Sherman Downies and the Once and these types of sort of prolific musicians who really have represented the Western Newfoundland's scene for a long time in a great way. But there's obviously so much more to uncover there. And for me, again, like I don't have this like grant writing, artist management sort of muscle. So I see a lot of this talent around. There's not a ton I can like do to cultivate them until they're ready to try to do a show. And I'm like, all right, here I am ready for that. Yeah. So it's hard to describe the scene, but I would say there's willing venues now, which is important. Places like the Rotary Arts Center, which is a great place for any artist to really turn to for a quality show. There's small venues like Bootleg Brewing who are into independent stuff, into alternative music. And there's places like the Hue and Draw Hotel who are providing guaranteed income and accommodations for these artists. So that is contributing to a scene. Having places to play is pretty paramount to having a healthy scene. And also like places like the Vinyl Garage in Pasadena, a little house show sort of venue, right? So there's really kind of all kinds of different things going on over there. And it's really hard to put a pin on and describe. I think there's a lot more independent and alternative stuff going on in Western Newfoundland than trad, I would say, right? Mm-hmm. From what I see. But yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And the ones themselves, Phil and Jerry in particular, they got a new studio out there called Gingerbeard Studio. Yeah. And they produced some great records there. They produced Eversweet's album. They also produced Paranoia's album.
Yeah, I've got to, this is a great opportunity for me to give a plug to a great friend and a great musician on the West Coast who doesn't get sort of the recognition that he deserves. His name is Jamie Stone. And Jamie, I think, had his first MusicNL nomination, or his first project last year. A fantastic artist, and he has had a recording project at Gingerbeard, which is why that just came to mind. So everybody go check out on Spotify Jamie Stone and the couple tracks he released with Phil and Jerry Lynn, and he had Noah Hamilton on the tracks and Scott Shepard. So really just beautifully done, and so that's an example of somebody that I'm all too eager to help try to do whatever.
No, 100%.
Yeah.
And Scott will be on this podcast over the couple of weeks that we're going to be airing these.
Scott Shepard, okay, let me backtrack. What's the musical scene like in Western Newfoundland? It's Scott Shepard. Right? That's it's for a good way. Scott has supported so many different bands, have helped them create and steer their projects, as well as becoming the rhythm backbone of the thing. And now, of course, he's gone in this graphic design and creative direction, so he's just like he truly is the best representative of the scene, I have to say.
Yeah, he's like the glue that really holds it all together.
He really is. Yeah, I mean, from whatever it is, somebody has a project, they need players on the project, whatever they need. I know for a fact Scott has worked with artists to help them transpose their music and all these types of things, right? He's extremely talented, so he is a tremendous asset to the team in such a way, to the scene, I should say.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. Now, when it comes to your role in the media, of course, you work with NTV and Oz, you work with RogersTV. You received a Media Person of the Year nomination. I mean, you're keeping that warm for me. I'm just letting you know that now.
Yeah, for sure, buddy. Yeah.
No, but
sure. I thought this was going to be the year because you weren't in the nomination. I'm like, all right, maybe there's a chance here.
Look, I've won 2 times, but I've also lost 3 times. So I'm also a 3-time loser.
I need to do a bit more losing, I guess, before I can take it home. But once again, I just have to reiterate that it's just so nice to even just be in that conversation. And again, feeling so isolated on the West Coast from all the from the Newfoundland bigger picture. Again, it's just such an honor to be even
Yeah, no, you
part of the conversation.
You do play an important role. It may not be as large as
Right.
being in the St. John's area, but having that West Coast scene is very, very important to cover all ends of the island.
Yeah, and Zach, essentially what I think is happening and what will happen is that there's not going to be a West Coast scene and a St. John scene. I truly hope. I think
there's going to be
becoming a Newfoundland scene. Everybody's starting to become friends. Everybody's working together. Some of the less sincere people fall off, and the people who are really have their heart into it, they survive the storms. And so now what I'm starting to see is like this landscape of what I think could be the future of Newfoundland's music scene, and it does feel more connected than ever kind of across the island.
This is what we're all about, connecting here on Musical Connections.
Nice.
I want to, before we do get to some future plans of 2026,
Sure.
I want to talk about a company that you and Brent McNamara started called TicketTide.
Sure.
I first heard about it, I think it was at the ECMAs in Charlottetown, I think.
Yep.
How did you get that all started up, and what was the purpose of starting up TicketTide?
So ticketing seems to be a pain point for a lot of different people, and Brent and I have both encountered that in our, as promoters and as producers. We've experimented with a lot of different ticketing platforms, had various levels of good and bad experiences, but everything we're involved in, whether it's like trying to do a small tour, working with a new venue, and you need to sell tickets and you realize this place is not set up for tickets, or an artist who's about to embark on a tour and organizing ticket sales on multiple shows can be a little bit daunting sometimes. The payouts can be a bit confusing, and how you access your actual money. So Brent and I hadn't spent a ton of time together, but actually back at the Halifax ECMAs, which I guess 3 or 4 years ago, we decided to throw in and split a Airbnb to kind of cut down on costs of attending the ECMAs. And while there, just kind of had some chats and discussions, and I had already been working with the company Tixer, which is a major international ticket platform that provides enterprise level solutions. So they're out there looking to bring in major arenas, major festivals that are doing like 100,000 tickets, $1 million in sales. That's what their technology is built for. But just because some friends of mine who came up through ticketing with, who worked at Eventbrite, worked at ShowPass, and now they're with this new company, gave me the opportunity to use their technology. And I was really the only person in Newfoundland or in Eastern Canada who could sell shows on Tixer outside of Iceberg Alley at the time, which were using it. And Shaun Basha had hooked that up.
Okay.
So, what we decided to do was take we loved the Tixer platform. We believed so strongly in that it's the best one. And we decided to make it an umbrella with it and bring everybody else in so we can provide this ticketing solution. And what it did was, for us, selfishly, it gave us an excuse and a reason to interact with a lot of people, right? With different festivals, with communities, with musicians. Now all of a sudden we're getting the chance to help them. We're getting to work on their projects with them. And so we're like basically a box office solution for any type of event, whether it's a hockey arena or a music festival. And it turned out that people were really into it. And we basically this is essentially this is like our launch right now, this discussion. We've been doing this in beta for like 2 years, working with all manner of festivals and creators, but basically on a word of mouth basis. We've had very good experiences. We've run festivals now in Ontario. We're up doing Iron Fest in Lab City, which is a nice big festival, doing ticketing for the city of Corner Brook. We've done a lot of events at the Rock House. And we just want to be the go-to. So when people have to sell tickets, they think about us. And the angle of that is basically, if you're the creator, it's free for you. Buyers pay ticket fees when they buy tickets. Everywhere you go, everywhere in the world. And in a lot of places, the ticket fees are astronomical.
Oh,
right? You go to Toronto and you buy a show and you really look at your stub and you've paid like $60 in fees and processing and stuff, right?
Ridiculous.
Yeah. So for us, we want to keep our fees right in line with everybody else. We'll make a small amount on each ticket, and really it's a volume thing for us as a company. I think we need to sell a lot of tickets for it to be really fruitful. But in the meantime, it's giving us this opportunity to interact with venues and artists, and it's also a springboard for other conversations. So they might come looking for a ticketing solution, but we can end up providing other help. And maybe we come on as then their event managers, or maybe they fly us up to their event and we're now running like we would have done in Labrador. We provide them a ticket solution and they said, hey, can we bring you up and can you run our admission area for us, right? So me and Brent go up and size things up and bring up our scanners and our tools. and meet their volunteers, give them a brief training, and then we sort of, just integrate right into their festival, and it's so much fun. And so for anybody listening to this, if it sounds like something of use, then just reach out, and trust me, it'll be easy and there's no strings attached.
Yeah, you said that this is pretty much your launch, and just looking at all the people that are around here, talking and doing business here, these are really important places for people to get together and really, do business, but also connect and, catch up on, some fun times y'all had together. So how important are events like this for the development of the sector?
Zach, man, like if it wasn't for, we literally wouldn't be talking right now. You know what I mean? Like honestly, if it wasn't for these opportunities, and what I'm realizing is there has been opportunities like this here for people like me and you for 4 years. It's just, I wasn't taking advantage of them. I didn't get involved with MusicNL until, basically the pandemic, after 5 or 6 years of trying to figure things out in the industry. So I could have done myself some favors by getting involved, but sooner. But this stuff is so important. I can't imagine how, just from like an industry perspective, for me as like a promoter and producer, I can't imagine how else I would get this opportunity to interact and pick the brains of like major producers, venue owners, and get to have this time to ask them questions about, hey, what can I do the next time I have this come up to make sure that this works out a little bit better? How can I pitch this better to you in the future? It's amazing what springs up just from being around sometimes, and just what happens organically. And it's great, the one-on-one meetings that we get to do and this sort of set up interactions. But for me, honestly, a lot of the best results have come from things that were discussed out by the door, so to speak, And,
no, for sure, in the old smoking area.
Right, and or whatever, like the after-hours stuff. It's like just those little sideline conversations are often the things that become, that flourish. When like minds, you're around a conference for a week and you start to hear that there's some other like-minded people, some mutual friends say, hey, you might want to talk to that guy while you're here, probably worth your time.
100%.
Yeah, so I think it's invaluable, honestly, and I think it's so important, and that it's something that our government and everybody else needs to support this type of stuff in a big way.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. Now, we've been going on for quite a while, but this has been a really fun conversation. But before we wrap up here, what are you working on, per se, for 2026 that are really in the works, but you can't really reveal too much yet? Yeah. So what's in the books for 2026?
In 2026, we're hoping to really expand on what we're doing with TicketTide by integrating with a lot more of the municipalities and the towns and the bigger festivals that are happening on the island. And we want to provide that solution. So that's a big lighthouse for us. I'll definitely continue to support the city of Corner Brook and their Jigs and Wheels Festival and some of the things that are happening over there. And myself, through Steady Entertainment, we're looking at, I'll say, 2 to 3, medium-sized events we want to produce, concert events over in Western Newfoundland in quarter 1 and quarter 2 of this year. But for the most part, we're hammering in, looking at festival season, because the thing that keeps happening is festival season comes before you know it. And if you don't have your plans all kind of made by really early winter, it's almost too late to be working on a summer festival. So that's where I've been now. And looking forward to see what we can actually bring to light for 2026 festival season.
Well, we're going to get to one of the songs from some of the festival people that you've had on the show or one of your festivals so far. We'll actually play a song from Jamie Stone. We haven't played him in a while.
Amazing.
Now, for people who want to find out more about Dustin Parsons and everything you're doing with Steady Entertainment, TicketTide, let me know about all the links and where they can find you on social media.
Yeah, you can just search Dustin Parsons, and there I pay for the blue check mark, mostly for the day when somebody hacks my account. I can resolve that a little bit easier, but maybe it'll make it a little easier to find me right now. So Dustin Parsons 709 on Instagram, Steady Entertainment on Facebook and Instagram and all that. Of course, you can follow RogersTV on YouTube. Everything Rogers does goes up on YouTube, so it can be viewed kind of around the world. But look me up. I'm not hard to find. Dustin from Corner Brook, and we will connect.
This is a blast, Dustin. I'm so glad we were able to do this. Thanks again, and this won't be your last time on the show. Thanks again for doing this, Dustin.
Thanks, Zach.